Thank you very much. There we go. Recording in progress. Thanks, Zoom. All right, so welcome. Thank you all for being here this morning. My name is Peggy Harnock. I am the founder and social media strategist at the Social Gourmet. We are a boutique social media marketing agency. We're located in Grimsby, and we work exclusively with small businesses and community organizations across Canada to help them build and manage their online communities. So I really appreciate all of you being here today, as well as the opportunity to present this workshop series to you. This is a partnership, the Your Hometown Holiday campaign, and it is a partnership between, as you can see on your screen, Shop Lincoln, the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, and Downtown Bench Beamsville. So this is the first in a series of 3 social media marketing workshops. This one is entitled Combating Social Media Overwhelm. Don't panic, you got this. And so if you're here today, you're overwhelmed by social media. So join the club. And I can't imagine how overwhelming it would be for the average social media user or the average small business owner who's tasked with managing social media for their business, because we as experts are sometimes overwhelmed by social media. The ever-changing algorithms, they change the rules all the time. There are different formats, different formulas. Am I supposed to be on TikTok? I don't want to be on TikTok. What the heck do I do on TikTok? It's overwhelming. And those are the types of questions that we're hoping to quell for you today. So there are certainly 1,001 technical behind the scenes things that we could talk about in workshops. That's not what this workshop is. This is going to be simply asking you to take a deep breath and take a step back and think very strongly about who you are, what you stand for, who your business is, and use those things that you already know to drive your content marketing forward. Okay, so before we get started with the presentation itself, the sort of guts of the presentation, let's just move on to a few housekeeping issues that we have going, that we have today. The muting of the microphones we already discussed. So if you just entered the room, please mute your microphone just to eliminate background noise, feedback, etc. Also, your host is easily distracted, so muted microphones are appreciated. Also, if you haven't already opened the chat feature at the bottom of your screen, please do so and just introduce yourself in the chat. Like I said, we had close to 20 people register for this presentation, which is greatly appreciated, but just let us know who you are and where you're from. It doesn't have to be a long introduction, just, Peggy from the Social Gourmet, just so we know who we are, who we're on the call with. I think we have a wide variety of businesses and organizations from across Lincoln and Niagara. Dawn from the Pilates Experiences. Amanda, hi Amanda, haven't seen you in a while. Katie from Custom Sign Lab. Josh. Excellent. So you can continue to drop those in there. And again, using the chat feature, Barbara from Royal LePage, Chris from Rustic Food. So a real wide variety of industries as well too today, which is fantastic. And oh, Urban Cravings, a good lunch. And Jeanette. Jeanette is also from the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce. She's actually the project coordinator for the Your Hometown Holiday campaign. So that's something that we're very appreciative of, that we were included in that this year. So keep the chat open because we're going to encourage you to use it throughout the presentation. A member of our Social Gourmet team is going to be moderating for me today. They will be monitoring the chat for questions. So if you see Jake from the Social Gourmet popping into the chat, Jake's going to be moderating for us today. Jake is a communications student at Seneca College. He worked a co-op term with us back 2 years ago in his final term of high school, and he now works part-time in our office 2 mornings a week. So Jake will be moderating today. If you have technical issues, if you can't hear, if you need some help with something, or if you have questions, feel free to drop those in the chat and he will assist you to the best of his ability. We're also going to encourage you to use the PDF worksheet or a notebook. Now, the PDF worksheet was included in the confirmation email that you would have received that included this Zoom link. So if you want to go back to that email, you can grab it. I'm also going to ask Jake to drop the PDF worksheet into the chat for you so you can download it from there. This worksheet is simply meant to help you guide your thoughts and organize your thoughts. So if you want to use it now during the course of the session, that's great. If you want to print it and utilize it after the fact when you're kind of downloading the information from your brain, that's fine too. Or you can choose to not use it at all. It's entirely up to you. It's a free resource just to help guide your thoughts. So our presentation today will run approximately 30 to 40 minutes, and we're going to follow it by a Q&A. So what we're asking is that throughout the course of the presentation, please drop your questions in the chat. Jake's going to compile those for me in my second screen here so that I can address them all for you at the end of the presentation. And that way we can kind of keep things organized, and I'll have like a curated list of questions that have come up during the course of the presentation. And hopefully we'll have the opportunity to address all of those for you because we do have an hour. So we should have between 20 and 30 minutes for questions. So any questions that you do have, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll do our best to address them at the end of the session. And those of you who were here at the beginning will have heard me ask my moderator to please start the recording. We're going to let you know that this session will be recorded for two reasons. One, as a resource for you, because the entire session will be recorded and posted on the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce website in the coming days. So if you need to go back to it to refresh your memory and what the heck did she say about that, then you'll be able to do that. The other reason we tell you it's going to be recorded is that because this is a Zoom call and some of you have your cameras on, if you would prefer at this point to turn your camera off, because some of your faces are in fact visible in the sidebar of the screen, as you can see. If you prefer to have your camera off and not have your face as a part of the recording going onto the Lincoln Chamber's website, please feel free to turn your camera off at this point. It won't affect your ability to interact throughout the course of the presentation, but we are recording at this point. Okay, so let me give you a quick introduction as we move forward. Who is the Social Gourmet? Since 2016, the Social Gourmet has helped dozens of small businesses and community organizations take their social media to the next level. And we have a team, a social media strategist, that's myself. Our team also includes a graphic designer, a content writer, a photographer, and a digital ad specialist. And our digital ad specialist works specifically on the paid ads and the paid ad strategy side of things. What we're really going to be focusing on today in this session is organic strategy. So the story of your business, the organic content that you'll want to be sharing with your followers. The services that we offer cover a wide range of topics. We do social media audits, social media marketing strategy, which has always been popular, but in 2021, it has gone through the roof. I think there has been a realization that random posting will not get your business to the level that it needs to be at. And so the strategic component has become really important for people. Graphic design, we also offer content marketing, digital ads, as I mentioned, as well as coaching and training. So we offer this type of workshop presentation to our community. We do these workshops on our own. We also offer them for one-on-one sessions. So if you specifically want to dive into something specific for your business, we can help you with that. We've also done these types of presentations for mortgage brokerages, real estate offices, to help a range of agents within a certain organization kind of take their social media to the next level. So that's just a quick snippet of who we are and what we do. And I'd really like today for you to come away from this session really feeling inspired. So the goals and objectives today, like I said at the beginning, taking a really deep breath and diving into what you already know. The goals and objectives for today are that we're going to answer some commonly asked social media questions. Now, these are questions that you're going to drop into the chat that we're going to address in the Q&A session portion at the end of the session. These are also questions that I get asked on the regular by business owners. When Jeanette and I were talking about setting up these sessions, I told her that, I can't pump gas or get groceries without someone approaching me with their phone and asking me a social media question. So I know what some of the commonly asked questions are, and we're going to address some of them for you. But please feel free to drop your questions on an ongoing basis in the chat and we will address them. I'm also going to challenge you to use what you already know to connect with your audience. And a lot of times people get overwhelmed and sort of knocked down and discouraged almost by the enormity of social media marketing. And I really want to challenge you to use the knowledge that you already have of your business. You may already have a lot of the answers that you're looking for from a content marketing perspective. And we really want you to leave here today with a new perspective and the motivation to move forward with your content marketing. So when we run these workshops, and when we've run these workshops in the past, or like I said, when people approach me on the street clutching their phones, the most common question is always some variation of, how do I get more followers? Does anybody have that question? I'm going to assume the answer is yes. Everybody wants more followers. And so let's explore that. I want you to use the chat feature if you're comfortable. Anytime I'm asking you, by the way, to use the chat feature, if you're comfortable putting your answer in the chat, that's fine. If you'd prefer to just write it on your worksheet or in a notebook, that's also fine as well. But let's explore the, how do I get more followers? And I'm going to ask you to use your chat or your worksheet. And I'm going to ask you, why do you want more followers? Why would a small business or a community organization or a not-for-profit want more followers? There's no wrong answers here, but we're just curious to see the types of things and the types of reasonings. And I'm going to give you a smidge of inspiration and pop you to the next chat while you have those thoughts. Bigger reach, new potential clients, more exposure for what you're doing. Your followers, share and expand your database. Exactly. So these are great answers. And I've got some more of them here on the screen. Gain more donors and reach more people who need our services. Exactly. So what you're going to see here on the screen is basically a smattering of the answers that you've already given in the chat. Why would you want more followers? You want exposure for your business or organization. You want sales of your product or your service. You'd like registrations if you're a registration-based business, like a yoga studio, Pilates studio, dance studio. Promotion of events, whether they be online or in person, ticket sales, as well as brand awareness. So all of these are great reasons why you would want more followers. But where I really want to challenge your thought process today is that these are all really great reasons to take good care of the followers that you already have. So here's what I want you to do before we move on to the next slide. I was going to say if you have your phone handy, but let's be honest, we all have our phone handy. So if you have your phone handy, and if you don't, that's fine. But grab your phone, and what I want you to do is we're going to determine your quote unquote magic number. If you've seen me present before, I always talk about a magic number because it's so important and people overlook it. So let's talk about Facebook specifically. So I want you to use your phone. I want you to go to the Facebook page for your business or your organization, and I want you to write down the number of current followers that you have on your Facebook page. Now, again, whether you're writing that down or whether you're dropping that into the chat, either way is fine. Some people are comfortable sharing, others are not. And I'm going to move on to our magic number slide while you do that. And if I could just have my moderator let the person from the waiting room in, that would be great. I recognize that name, so that's okay. All right, so we do have some magic numbers on the screen here. If you're not comfortable putting them in the chat, that's fine. Some people have a fear of judgment of their magic number. So what I've got here on the screen for you is a cross section of magic numbers from some Lincoln-based small businesses and community organizations. So you can see they range from, a few hundred, 270, 428, to a few that are over 1,000. We've got 1,900, 1,092, we've got 2,100, and some up as high as 4,122. So the great thing is there's no wrong answer. Your magic number is the number of followers you have right now. So the goal of a magic number is fine. So if you've got 500 followers now and you would really like to have 1,000, that's okay. It's okay to have a goal, but I really want you to focus on that magic number now. And what makes it magic is the opportunity and the asset that that number is. Regardless of what your number is, those are people who are already following you. They are already interested in your story. They are already interested in your business or organization, and they are already interested in what you have to offer. So many businesses spend so much time and energy and effort trying to get more followers out there in the netherworld of social media where there are literally millions of people. But that magic number, whether it's as low as 270 or as high as 4122 or somewhere in between, is a huge asset to you. And I would really encourage you to look at it that way, because when people approach me and say, how do I get more followers? What I challenge them back is, why do you need more followers? And if you're really looking at that magic number that you have and thinking about that unpopular statement that you don't need more followers, what you really need to do is take better care of the followers you have, because they are such a huge asset for your business. They're already there. It's like a captive audience. And some of you are going to say, okay, well, I have 270 followers, but I post something and not all those people see it. And that's correct. But you do have that audience that is already there and already interested in your business. So I really want you to feel motivated by that number instead of spending so much energy trying to gain more. Because if you're taking really good care of those followers, then they're going to transition into customers, clients, registrations for your business, all those goals that you had on the why do you want more or need more followers slide. You can gain that type of exposure, those types of registrations, and those types of sales from taking better care of your current magic number. So what are you providing them in terms of value? So your next question is probably, okay, great, magic number. So I have 270 clients. What am I supposed to do with them, and how am I supposed to take better care of them? Because if your goal is always more, then you're neglecting what you've already got. And that's the shift that I would really like for you to get today, is to take good care of who you've already got. More will come. They will always come. Some slow, some quicker, depending on the industry. But really take good care of those followers that you've got. So what do I mean by that? What I mean is, what are you providing them with in terms of value? So let's pop to the next slide and talk a little bit about providing value on social media. Is your feed a perpetual ad stream? Providing value, building trust, having conversations. These are things that I want you to think about. So how are you taking care of your current followers? And we'll talk about what that means. What are you providing them in terms of value? Is your feed a perpetual ad stream? This is such an important point. There's a reason that we prefer Netflix to cable television. Why is that? Because there are, I know you're muted, but say it with me, no commercials. Okay. Nobody likes commercials. That's why we watch Netflix, because we hate commercials. I have one show that I love on cable TV on Sunday night, and I'm so irritated every time a commercial comes on because I don't want to watch commercials anymore. So if your social feed is a perpetual ad stream and it's nothing but commercials, people are going to lose interest. Should you be selling your product? Should you be selling your service? Absolutely. But from an organic social media standpoint, the rule of 80-20 is something that you're really going to want to consider. This does not apply to paid social, which is in fact a perpetual ad stream. So that's a separate conversation. But when you're talking about organic social media, the rule of 80-20 is that 80% of your content should provide value to your followers and 20% should be quote unquote sales. So keep that in mind. The next question too, are you using your social channels to build trust in your brand? And are you regularly having conversations with your followers? So those three things in bold print that you see there, value, trust, and conversations, those are the real keys. Provide value, build trust, and have conversations. And that is what will build an online community that will sustain your business over the long term. Now, providing value, look at me with my old school notes on paper. Providing value is an equation. And I'm going to go to the next screen and we're going to talk about that equation. So value from social media perspective, or from a business perspective in general, quite frankly, is expertise plus advice plus experience. Providing true value to your followers is all about giving. So when you're planning your organic content, again, paid content and paid ad strategy is another animal altogether. But when you're planning your organic content, the main question you ask yourself should be, what can you give to them? So what can you give them in terms of your expertise? What can you be sharing in terms of advice or your experience? These are things that you can give in terms of tip. There's, Tip Tuesday is something that is a little bit overused, quite frankly, but it's something that can be incorporated into your experience. And I'll give you a perfect example of this. I was speaking a couple of weeks ago with the owner of a plumbing company, and we were talking about this. We were providing value because he was kind of talking about providing value. He was kind of, lamenting the fact that, I'm a plumbing company. Nobody wants to read about plumbing on social media. How am I going to make this interesting? So the reality is everyone on this call and everyone who can probably see that company's social media has plumbing. So this person is providing a service that we could all at some point use. We all have plumbing. We don't think about it. We only think about plumbing when the toilet's overflowing or the pipe is leaking, but we all have plumbing. This company had also been in existence for 30 plus years. So the volume of expertise and experience that this particular business owner has in the plumbing industry and seeing the changes is massive. And there's also the thought process, which is kind of the seed that I wanted to plant for him. He's been going into people's homes and unclogging their toilets, fixing their pipes, and renovating their bathrooms for 30 years. He has seen every potential problem, and probably off the top of his head could think of at least a dozen ways to fix a leaky pipe or unclog a toilet, and things you should check before you call a plumber. That's building trust. So if you're giving information, and people say, well, why would I want to tell them not to call a plumber? I'm the plumber. Why would I not want them to call me? But it's about building trust. So if over the course of weeks and months and years, you're following this plumbing company and you're seeing their tips about what to check or how to DIY fix your overflowing toilet, or what's the first thing you should check if you suspect a leaky pipe. These are things that are providing value, and they're also building trust. So if I've seen that type of content over the course of weeks or months or years, I'm coming to trust that company and their experience. So when I do have a problem, I'm going to call them. And also when I need a bigger ticket service, like a bathroom renovation, listen, it might cost me a couple $100 to get my overflowing toilet snaked, but it might cost me a few thousand or more, or tens of thousands to have my bathroom renovated. But if that company has been building trust with me on social media by sharing their advice, sharing their expertise, and sharing their experience over the course of years, I'm going to make that call. And that's a big ticket purchase that they did by sharing what they already know. Really think about what you already know, what you are an expert, whatever your business is. We have people here from Pilates studios, from not-for-profits. We have a mortgage broker. We have real estate agents. Regardless of what industry you work in, you are an expert in that industry, and the volume of information that is already in your brain is such valuable content to your followers. So the other thing that I really want you to think about too is what makes you different. And chances are there are a lot of businesses out there who do what you do. There are a few very unique businesses, but for the most part, there are other marketing agencies, there are other Pilates studios, there are other hotels, there are other mortgage brokers. You're not the only one who does what you do. But I want you to really dig deep and think about what makes you different. So especially in really competitive industries, off the top of my head, because we have worked with these industries, I can tell you that HVAC, fitness, and real estate, sorry, realtors, are three of the most competitive industries. Now, you know that if you're in one of those industries, you don't need me to tell you that. But what you need to figure out, and this is the really deep dive, is what makes you different. Everyone on the call today probably knows at least half a dozen realtors, but what makes you different? Why do you do what you do? What is your story? So the story of how you got from point A to point B, the story of why you started your business, the story of why you work in the industry you do, and how you followed that path. Those of us who are entrepreneurs know that it's not point A to point B, isn't that a nice straight line? It's usually some line that looks a little bit like this, and that's what gets us from point A to point B. And that story is really important. And so I'm going to tell you our story briefly, and so you can understand what I talk about in terms of telling a story. So my entrepreneurial journey started about 12 years ago. So for most of my life, I've been a professional ballroom dancer. And about 12 years ago, look, I saw eyeballs pop, right? It makes no sense. Why is she presenting to us on social media? It's my story, I'm going to tell you. So about 12 years ago, I opened a dance studio, a ballroom dance studio in Burlington, where we were living at the time. And what I did back then, 12 years ago, Facebook was fairly new. Facebook for business wasn't really a thing, certainly wasn't the type of thing that it is today. But what I did was I created a Facebook page for the studio, and I wanted it to be a community, sort of like an old school chat room. So I'm showing my age. Those of you who are 40 plus know what a chat room is. And so what I did when I created this Facebook page was I wasn't thinking of it in terms of traditional marketing, but because the studio was for adults, I wanted them to be able to have conversation. If they had made friends in a class, I wanted them to be able to talk to that person. I wanted to be able to share with them what kind of cool music was coming up for Friday night's Zumba class, or give them a bit of a breakdown in a video perspective of the step that we learned in last night's waltz workshop. And so I created this community online for the studio. And what ended up happening, completely without effort in terms of quote unquote traditional marketing, was that over the course of the next 2 years, I was able to attribute 70% of my new and retained student base to that community that I had built online that was not traditional marketing. And so don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking the traditional marketing, but in my head, I was thinking of marketing as, signage and ads in the paper. What I didn't realize was that building this trust and this community online on Facebook had turned into a community of people that trusted me and was willing to continue to register for the classes that I had at the studio. And so that was a huge light bulb for me, was that marketing doesn't have to be the hard sell side of things. There is a time and a place for that, absolutely, but marketing can also be building trust and building community. And so that's when I made the shift to the marketing industry. And since 2016, with the Social Gourmet, have been helping other businesses build that trust and build that community online, because I realized that that's how you go about doing it from a trust building perspective. So that's the story. And that's a great story because for two reasons. First of all, because we built trust within it, not only within the small business community, because they've seen us do it for ourselves and they've seen us do it before. It also builds trust within a certain industry, which is important for you in terms of sharing. Because I did that initially right out of the gate with a dance studio, we have a lot of clients from the performing arts industry. So dance studios, music production companies, independent musicians that come to us because they trust us because we started out in that industry. So that's a portion of the trust building. But the other reason that that's such a cool story is because now that you know, it makes sense. If I walked up to you at a networking event, which we may or may not be allowed to be close enough to shake hands, but traditionally speaking, if I walked up to you at a networking event and said, "Hi, my name is Peggy. I'm the founder and social media strategist at the Social Gourmet. I used to be a professional ballroom dancer," and walked away, we'd be like, "What the heck? That makes no sense." But now in sharing the story, point A to point B makes sense. And so whatever your journey happens to be, whether you're an entrepreneur And the story is just like that, what got you from point A to point B, why you do what you do. Do you own a vegan bakery? Well, why did you get into vegan baking instead of quote unquote regular baking? What was the motivation to that for that? Why do you do what you do? What is your story? And sharing that in small snippets with your followers and why you do what you do goes a long way to not only building trust, but putting the sort of face behind the brand. And I know from the list that I have of registrants here that we have some people from not-for-profits and community organizations, and a couple from larger businesses and corporations. But the whole story there is still going to be important. So you can tell the story of your organization. You can tell the story of different members of your team within that organization. Why have they worked for you for the past 20 years? Why do they stay? What is their motivation? There can be a story of a business in general, not necessarily from an entrepreneurial standpoint, but even a larger business. I know, and I'm not sure if Jennifer from the Casablanca Hotel is in fact on the call. She was registered, but I saw her name, and when I was thinking about the story, this is one of the ideas that came to mind, because the Casablanca Hotel, while there may not be a story of the entrepreneur behind that hotel, there could be, but when I think of that hotel, I don't claim to know how long it's been there because I don't, so we'll have to look that up. But I know that I moved to Grimsby 8 years ago. And when I moved to Grimsby 8 years ago, the Casablanca Hotel was standing there all by its lonely little self on the Grimsby waterfront. And what was next to it was a Tim Hortons and a Harvey's. Now, the Casablanca Hotel is at the heart of a thriving Grimsby on the Lake community. It is a residential community. It is an up and coming business community. So even the story of your location, so that hotel, which is now at the heart of this absolutely, oh look, and Jennifer's popping into the chat. It was built in 2000. So there you go, 21 years ago. So Jennifer, I'm going to challenge you, go back into the archives. Like there's got to be photos about how there's the story of how that community and that neighborhood around the hotel has changed. So that's why I want you to challenge yourself to really think about the story, because there is always a story. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. When we think about doing all of this and putting it together, it is a lot of work, right? So there's content calendars, there's posting schedules, there's all that sort of technical stuff that comes along with keeping it organized. But social media should be like any other aspect of your business. It shouldn't be random. It should be a well thought out plan, a well thought out process. But we're going to use today's event as a way to sort of inspire you to use the sort of day-to-day snippets of your day to add some on the fly or spontaneous content. So here's a content assignment for you. It's easier than you think. So you can do this right now if you have a minute, or you can do it as you move forward. But most of you have a notepad or your PDF worksheet nearby. You probably also have a mug of something caffeinated, and you probably already have a smartphone nearby. So what I'm going to challenge you to do is take a picture. So if you want to take a minute, get that worksheet laid out, get your coffee cups situated appropriately, snap a picture of that, or snap a picture of the screen here. Tell folks how you spent your morning and what you learned. Tag relevant accounts, the Social Gourmet, the Lincoln Chamber, Downtown Bench, Beamsville. That's going to gain you added exposure. And your followers really are interested in what you're doing behind the scenes. So if you're a solo entrepreneur, took some time out of my busy schedule to attend, blah, 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 you can fill in the blanks from there. That's something that's going to show your followers that you're taking time to increase your skill level, to learn things, to share some insights and information with other businesses within your local community. You can use the Your Hometown Holiday hashtag for added exposure as well. The other thing that you want to think about, again, for the community organizations who are thinking, okay, well, I don't maybe want to tell my followers that I just took an hour out of my day to attend a workshop. Why not? Because if you're a community organization, I know Amanda is here from McNally House. McNally House is a hospice. And so that's the kind of thing that you'd think, well, why would I want to tell people that I attended a social media workshop? But if you work for a community organization, you're attending a workshop like this because you want to learn more about how you can share better, more relevant, more helpful information with the people who are following your account, and how you can help them learn more about your organization. So it is absolutely relevant that you took time out of your day to try to up your skill level when it comes to something like this. So again, tagging those relevant accounts like the Social Gourmet, the Chamber, and Downtown Bench Beamsville. Listen, everyone loves added exposure. What would you do if I tagged your business in a post speaking positively about you? I know you're muted, but you would share it, right? So that's going to gain you additional exposure. At the very least, those businesses that you tag are going to like your content and drop you a friendly comment. Best case scenario, they're going to share it. So if you have 200 followers and they've got 2,000 followers, all of a sudden your content is being shared with their followers, and the volume of exposure that you get for your business, which someone mentioned off the top was one of the goals of having more followers, and get your content seen by more followers right out of the gate. So I'm going to know if you did your homework because you're going to tag the Social Gourmet. So that's your challenge. On Facebook or Instagram in a feed post, you can share it in a story, but I'd encourage you to do that either now or within the next few minutes if you're able. So what I'm really hoping at this point that you have gotten out of this presentation today is to use what you already know. Use that story and your knowledge of yourself and your business and your industry to really drive your social media presence forward. There's so much knowledge in there about who you are and what you do and why you do it that can be the basis for your content marketing. And I'm going to leave you with one of my favorite quotes from my absolute favorite movie, which I'm hoping will stay with you for the rest of the day, which is, "You've always had the power, my dear. You just had to learn it for yourself." All right, so I can see that we've had some questions being dropped into the chat. If you have already, and I can also see some of you holding up your phones like this, taking pictures to do your homework, which is excellent. I appreciate that very much. So let's move along to, we've got about 20 minutes left, which is fantastic. Let's move along to the Q&A portion of the presentation. If you have already been dropping your questions into the chat, that's fantastic. We can address some of them now. If you have questions now that you have not yet dropped into the chat, please feel free to add those now, whether you have specific questions about your business or industry, or your questions about the things that we talked about today. That would be fantastic. So we'll move along to that. If anyone does have any questions, you can drop them in there. I'll give you a minute to type. I'm going to take a quick drink. And I can see everyone's magic numbers there as well. 25, 16, 824, 1041, 180. Those numbers are so valuable. They are so valuable. And that's really what I'm hoping that that you'll get out of the presentation today, that you really want to take good care of those followers that you do have. So does anyone have any specific questions? I'm seeing typing. And I think too, I'd encourage you to, while you're dropping your questions, from a homework standpoint, from the worksheet there, again, that's meant to help you kind of guide your thoughts. So the things that we talked about today in terms of that magic number, why you want more followers, the type of content and the ideas that you have from your story, drop those into that worksheet, and that will really help. You can use it as a guide for content over the coming weeks or even months. Sometimes one story can turn into half a dozen posts. That story I told you about, how the Social Gourmet came to be and literally started as a dance studio and evolved through my marketing journey and evolved. That's not necessarily something I would share in one post. I would break that down. So you can really use that to kind of guide your thoughts. So, okay, so I'm seeing a few questions. So let's start with Josh, who says, is there a way to trigger tagged organizations to actively like and share? Just because you tag them, some may not take action to help you out and share, which is correct. So the short answer to this question, is there a way to trigger them to actively like and share? So the short answer is no. Sorry, that's probably not what you want to hear. But ultimately, the tagging process is something that has a few, there are a few factors from their end. So let's say, for example, you tag a large corporation. If you tag a large corporation who has a social media marketing team, there's probably a higher chance that they're going to see and or correspond with your content and potentially share it. If you tag a small independent business owner, listen, that's going to be a balancing act. Are they super swamped and they haven't even looked at their social media in 3 days? And so your notification has just gone by them and they just never see it? Or do they absolutely love what you said about them and they're going to share it instantaneously? I find, to be honest, it's one extreme or the other. It's either an immediate share or it gets lost in the shuffle. You know, as business owners, sometimes you see all your notifications and sometimes you don't. So the short answer to this is no. I would try to be consistent with it. I will tell you, it is ultimately bad form to then follow up with the business and say, hey, I tagged you. Do you want to share my content? Because it's ultimately their choice. And that's just one more notification that they don't necessarily need. But I would encourage you to only tag appropriate content. So in the example that we were talking about, tagging the Social Gourmet, the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce, and Downtown Bench Beamsville makes sense, because those are the organizations that are involved in this particular campaign. If you then also tag, hey, by the way, oh, Town of Grimsby, Grimsby Chamber, the City of Hamilton, just because you want exposure by those businesses, that doesn't make sense. That's A, bad form, and B, quite frankly, annoying. We've all been tagged in stuff that has no relevance to our business just because somebody wants us to share it. I see smiling and nodding. So yeah, let's not do that. And Rebecca is asking, how important are reels really? So specifically for your business, Rebecca, the short answer here is I don't know. And I don't know because everyone's business is different. But I will come back to the topic at hand here. And you are all here at this workshop entitled Combating Social Media Overwhelm because you are overwhelmed. So my statement back to you would be, if you are already up to here with social media and the changes and keeping up with the content and what the heck do I do with hashtags and are we supposed to be doing reels and should I be on TikTok? If that's the thought process that you're having, then my answer to you would be that you shouldn't be doing reels. And I don't mean that you shouldn't ever be doing reels, but you need to combat the overwhelm first and feel comfortable on the platforms that you are utilizing and the way you're using them before you step into something new. If you have a company Facebook page and an Instagram feed, and you're sort of managing those appropriately, and you don't feel overwhelmed, and you want to try the reels, go for it. Absolutely go for it. But don't spread yourself so thin. Don't be on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, LinkedIn, Twitter, and do all of those things poorly. Our advice is always that you are better off on one platform, rocking the heck out of it, than you are on 6 platforms doing it poorly. So if you want to try reels, absolutely. Do it when you're not feeling overwhelmed by all of the social media noise. The other thing that I would challenge you, Rebecca, or anyone else to do is before you step into either a new feature or a new platform, you need to know if that's where your potential client base is. So if you're marketing to seniors, you probably don't need TikTok. If you're marketing to teenagers, you're probably not going to reach them on Facebook, but you're unequivocally going to reach them on TikTok. So you also need to have a good deal of information and insight into where you're going to find your target demographic. So I hope that answered your question, Rebecca. Sorry, that seemed like a really long answer to a short question. Okay, so Dawn from the Pilates Experience, hi Dawn, says, I've been spending money boosting my Facebook posts and had some success and wondering how I can really measure if it's effective or not. Okay, so two things I'm going to say about this. One is in the third session of this series, which is coming up on testing my memory now, December the 9th, we are going to talk specifically about the pros and cons of paid social versus organic social. And we will talk in depth about insights and how to measure your success. So there's a small plug. If you haven't already registered for that one, you might want to. Determining success with boosted posts is going to take a few different paths. One is a technical path on the insights side of things. So when you look at your Facebook insights, in the insights tab on your Facebook page, if you're not already doing that, it will show you your metrics over the course of the month for organic social versus paid social. So you can see if there are peaks and or valleys in your reach or in the number of click-throughs, et cetera, depending on what your goals were. The other thing that will be a determinant of success from a paid social standpoint is the actual process of the buying process, or the steps throughout the buying process. So what were your goals at the beginning? So these are things that you would have had to determine. So is your goal more exposure for your business? So if your goal of that ad that you paid $100 for was more exposure for your business and 30 more people liked your page, well, that would be considered success. If the goal of your post was to get a dozen people to register for a Pilates program and you only got 1 or 2 people through that process, then that's something that will be determined. Again, the determinant of success is going to be from your end, because if you spent $100 on the ad and you got 1 person to register, well, okay, that's great if your registration was $1,000 or $1,500. To spend $100 to get that 1 registration might be worthwhile. But if you spend $100 and you got 1 registration and it's a $25 registration, then again, those are things that have to be tweaked. So insights and Facebook ad spend is really a long topic with a deep dive. So that's sort of a surface answer to your question, but it really relates back to the measurement of success really is what your goals were, and did you meet those goals, and then determining how much it cost you in order to meet some of those goals. So that's something that if you're interested in a one-on-one, we can certainly have that conversation, and definitely in the third session, we will dive into that a little bit deeper. So I hope that answered your question. Do we have any other questions? If so, please drop them in the chat. We're at about 10:51. So if there are other questions over the next minute or two, I'm happy to answer them. If not, then we can just move on to talking about a few of the next sessions. These have been great questions, by the way. I really appreciate these. And so much of it is custom to you and your business, right? Like Rebecca asking if reels are important. Well, they might be important for your business, but they might not be important for Amanda's. You know, Facebook ad spend goals. You know, if I spend $100 and that gets me 1 client, that might be considered success for me. But if you're selling a $5 cupcake and you spend $100 on an ad and you only sell 1 cupcake, then that might not be a determinant of success for you. So a lot of these answers are really dependent upon you and your business and what your goals are specifically. Okay, so I'm not seeing any more questions in the chat. If you are typing a question in the chat, just raise your hand at the moment and I will wait 1 second. Okay, so we will move on then. Thank you for the fantastic questions. I really appreciate all of you being here today. And thank you. Workshop number 2 in this series. Again, this is a 3-workshop series. You don't have to attend all 3, but I would certainly encourage you to, is next Thursday. So same time, same place, Thursday, December the 2nd at 10 a.m. It's entitled Marketing Do's and Don'ts for Social Media. So we're going to talk about the rules and the regulations that nobody reads, that everybody's breaking, and that can get your account suspended or shut down. We know the rules are boring, but we're going to try and give you a snapshot in 1 hour, marketing best practices. We're going to address these supposed growth hacks that I say are supposed because they are in fact supposed. We're going to talk about terms of service, copyright law, all that stuff that you should know, but you just don't have the time to dive into. So that's what we're going to talk about in the next session, next Thursday, December 2nd. Advanced registration is required. Now you can register through the Lincoln Chamber of Commerce website. Some of you may have registered already for all 3 sessions. I'm going to ask my moderator to please, if you don't mind, drop the link for the registration to the next session in the chat. So you have that there. And I thank you all so much for being here today. There's the registration link if you don't already have it. Again, it's on the Lincoln Chamber website. They've been promoting it on their socials, as have we. So thank you so much, not only to all of you who are here today, but to Shop Lincoln, the Lincoln Chamber, and Downtown Bench Beamsville for allowing us the platform to share this information with you as small business owners and members of community organizations. We thank you all very much for being here. I'm seeing a couple of quick things in the chat, which I'm going to address. Oh, it's all thank yous. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Thanks, everyone. I hope to see all of you next week. If you do have questions that were not addressed or that are specific to your business, our email address is on your PDF worksheet. Please feel free to reach out via email or follow us on social media. We would be happy to chat with you at any point. So thank you all for being here. Enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope to see you all next week.